Now, during the almost 5 years you knew the Coopers, did you ever see Brad yell or speak loudly to Nancy?
No.
Did you ever see Brad behave badly toward Nancy?
No.
Did she, at any time, tell you or give you any indication that Brad had ever laid a hand on her?
No.
Was Nancy afraid of Brad?
No.
When it comes to Brad Brad yelling at Nancy, you have not ever personally witnessed him yell at Nancy.
I have a very, very, very strange and old memory of personally witnessing it, but I don't feel that kind of vagueness should count.
And you'd certainly never seen him hit Nancy.
No.
You'd never seen him push her.
No.
You'd never seen him physically aggressive toward Nancy in any way.
No.
You have never heard Brad yell at Nancy in front of the children?
I testified that I remembered there being a time when I was on the phone with Nancy and that I heard Brad's raised voice, but that's all I can remember right now.
Do you recall testifying during your deposition under oath that you had never seen Brad yell in front of the children?
I don't recall, but there were many interviews that I did. So, again, at the phone conversation, I wasn't present for that.
Do you recall saying that you'd never heard him verbally abuse Nancy?
I believe I said that, but again, it's been a number of years.
Do you recall telling Detective Daniels in a taped interview that Nancy was never afraid of Brad?
Yes.
Because Nancy was not, in fact, ever afraid of Brad.
No, she wasn't.
Do you recall saying that Nancy didn't seem scared at the party?
She did not seem scared.
And when Nancy said, everyone's asleep, the word that she used when looking over at the house was, everyone. She didn't say, he is asleep.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And finally, when describing Brad to you, Nancy said, he's a good person.
Yes, she was talking about his family and said he was a good person.
Did you ever see Brad yell at Nancy over the years?
No.
Did you ever see Nancy yell at Brad?
I only heard Nancy yelling at Brad one time.
Now, during the time that you knew Brad and Nancy Cooper, you never saw Brad raise his voice to Nancy?
That's correct.
That night of the party, she gave you no indication that she was afraid of Brad Cooper?
That's correct.
Never said anything about Brad being violent?
That's correct.
Never at any time told you that she was afraid of Brad Cooper?
That's correct.
Now, during the approximately year that you were friends with Nancy, you talked about there were things that she complained about Brad, correct?
Yes.
But she never told you that Brad had ever been violent with her?
Right.
Never told you that she was afraid of him?
No, she wasn't.
Never said he ever threatened her?
No.
Now, you talked about the time in May that Brad came over to your house, I guess after Nancy was already there. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you said at some point that night, Brad basically offered to take the kids home,
Yes.
so Nancy could stay with you all later, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But at some time that night, you said Nancy became angry and frustrated with him,
Yes.
and she was yelling at him
Right before they left. Right before he left. Yes.
right before he left with the children.
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that Brad was not responding back to her.
I mean, he did. It's not like he just stood there and stared through her. I mean, he responded, yes, but didn't have the usual dialogue as two people would have if one was that upset.
He didn't yell back at her.
No.
She told you about those things in her relationship with Brad that she was unhappy with.
She did.
You said that the relationship, certainly in early 2008, was in bad shape.
Yes.
And you believed that Brad was behaving unreasonably.
I did.
But Nancy actually had the master bedroom in the house, correct?
She did.
Brad was sleeping in a guest bedroom.
Yes.
Nancy was able to go out with friends freely in the evenings.
As far as I know.
She was able to go on vacations.
I don't recall that she ever took a vacation during that time of 2008, besides going with her family.
Well, aside from going with her family, do you recall a trip when Nancy went to Washington, D.C. with friends?
Yes.
And that was without the children, was it not?
Correct.
So she left Katie and Bella with Brad.
Yes.
At some point, Nancy asked for the Cisco telephones to be taken out of the house,
Yes.
and Brad did.
Some point after she started complaining, it wasn't immediately.
She complained, and he complied.
Eventually, yes.
Brad was giving Nancy $300 a week.
That was after he first started only giving her 80, and that lasted for a number of weeks, and then it went to 300, yes.
For months, Brad was giving her $300 a week.
Okay.
That's correct?
Yes.
And that was after all the bills were paid.
Well, that included groceries.
In other words, Nancy was paying for groceries from the $300.
Yes.
But that was after the rent was paid,
To the best of my knowledge.
the mortgage, essentially. That was after the pool membership was paid,
To the best of my knowledge. I didn't do their bill keeping.
to the best of your knowledge, after the health club membership, Lifetime Fitness was paid,
Yes.
and
She had no way to write a check, so she wouldn't have been able to pay those bills if she wanted to.
but the $300 a month, $300 a week was
Cash.
cash money after taxes for her to buy groceries and gas.
Gas. Anything the kids needed, yes.
Over the years, the 5 years or so that you knew Brad and Nancy, did you make any observations about their spending habits?
They liked nice things. They had Nancy and the girls always looked wonderful. They had designer clothes, and they had a nice house with furniture and nice cars. Nancy liked paintings by certain artists in Canada that she collected.
Now, going into 2008, did Nancy ever complain to you about Brad not providing with enough money?
Yes, yes,
And did she talk about being put on a budget?
yes.
Now, during that time, did you see any indications that Nancy was not dressing well, or that the girls were not being dressed well, or that they were deprived?
I don't believe that they were deprived.
You were
no.
aware that Nancy had been on vacation for 8 days in late June and early July.
I don't remember the time span. I was aware that she was on vacation.
You knew that she was able to come and go as she pleased.
Except for gasoline. She did tell me that he was following her to the gas station to do the filling up with the amount of gasoline that she would need to go where she was going.
But you were aware that she was giving, that Brad and she had agreed upon $300 per week in cash, correct?
Correct.
And that's after taxes, on top of all the bills being paid.
Except for food bills. She was responsible for buying food with that money.
So she paid for food, she paid for gas.
I'm not sure. Maybe gas. I don't know.
But you're talking about Mr. Cooper driving to fill her tank up.
So to me, that's him paying for gas.
Well, if she has $300 a week, she's capable of paying for gas herself.
Are you asking a question?
Yes, ma'am. Isn't it true that if she's got $300 per week in cash, that she is in fact capable of purchasing gas for herself?
One would think that she might be able to, yes.
And on top of that $300 a week, Nancy was still able to purchase other items that Brad would pay for.
Yes, occasionally.
Was able to purchase nice clothing.
I believe so. At least I was with her shopping for the interview outfit, and I know that he had agreed to pay for that.
How much was that outfit, do you recall?
I do not recall.
Would it surprise you if it was over $600?
Surprised me a little bit. I probably would have said maybe 400.
Did she talk to you about having to take out a second mortgage?
Not that I remember. She may have mentioned it, but it didn't register particularly. Excuse me.
Did you talk with her about them having to cash out part of Brad's 401k?
No.
You said that Nancy didn't have a car for a period of time,
When they first moved there, yes.
and you knew that Nancy wanted a BMW.
Yes.
She wanted an X5.
Not back then. We're talking about a different period of time, but yeah, more recently, yes, she wanted an X5.
You knew during the period of time that she did not have a car prior to the X5 because she was waiting on a car to become available.
Oh, okay, talking about, yes.
So you're not saying that Mr. Cooper deprived her of a vehicle, you're saying they were waiting on the right car.
Correct.
Now, she also complained to you that she didn't feel like she was getting enough money on a weekly basis from Brad. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, did you know anything about the Coopers' financial situation as far as the bills they owed, the loans they had, or anything of that nature?
No, I
Remember
did
saying
not.
Okay.
that Brad would give Nancy barely enough money to buy groceries and provide for the two children?
I may have said that.
You were aware at that time that Brad had been giving Nancy $300 a week?
I don't remember the specifics about what she was given for an allowance. I didn't go back through my testimony to review every single last detail, but if I had said I knew more specifically closer to the event, then
And
I probably did.
the night that Mr. Cummings asked about, when you and Nancy had run a 5K, the two of you and Nancy, went to a restaurant afterward and had split a bottle of wine,
Yes,
and neither of you were comfortable driving home.
correct.
So you called your husband, isn't that right?
I called him first, I believe, and he wasn't able to pick us up.
Okay. And then Nancy called Brad.
Yes,
When Brad got there to pick you up, he actually had Bella and Katie with him, didn't he?
I believe so. I don't remember.
It was 10 p.m. at night, roughly.
Yeah, yes.
What was Brad's demeanor picking you up late at night?
He was pleasant.